Hello, and welcome to the show Writing in the Tiny House. The entire point of this podcast is to help the tormented artist by sharing what I know about writing, publishing, and stress management so that you can have the tools to produce the content that you have been eager to write. If you have the steps in place, you can produce a short story in as few as 3 months or a novel in as few as 18 months. And hopefully through the ideas in this podcast, you will have the wisdom to adjust that timeline if you need to. I am Devin Davis, the guy who lives and writes in a tiny house in northern Utah. Thank you for tuning in, and please enjoy today's episode of Writing in the Tiny House. Hello, and good morning, my friends. It is Wednesday yet again, and here we are. We are at the final episode of this season. Can you even believe that we have made it this far? So this year has been filled with a lot of different stuff, a lot of, advice on how to write, a lot of thoughts on how to get there, and then the big thing with NaNoWriMo that ended in the special way that it did. And so, guys, this is the perfect time of the year to sit back and reflect on how far you've come and on all of the things that you've done this year, on the things that you've accomplished, on the things that you did right, and on the things that you may not have done right, the things that were successful, the things that were not successful. And take a moment to just think about what those things are. If you're in a way to do so, I invite you to write them down. I invite you to simply reflect and feel out the things that have happened. For me, I was off to a very good start with this podcast at the beginning of the year. Lots of good content came from the beginning of this year, also from the end of last year, I think, in my own opinion. June was a really big month for this podcast. We had a bonus episode in that month, and here we are wrapping up the year. But I understand that not everybody who listens to this podcast is a writer. And so what other things did you do? Did you learn a lesson about yourself in regards to your relationships? Were you able to handle yourself in a different way to produce a better outcome to some of the relationships that you have? Did you have relationships begin? Did you have some new people come into your life or a new person? Perhaps you had some relationships end. Maybe some people stepped out, or maybe some people passed on. I don't know. How is your family? How are you? How are the things that you are doing that are important to you? How is your job? How are your hobbies? All of those things. As we sit back and reflect on the year, I wanted to share with you another reason why I write. I have shared this before, and I'm going to share it again with you today. I write as a way for me to understand more fully the things that I believe and the ideas that I say. So I have very deep and meaningful conversations with many of my friends, and sometimes I say things that are completely true to me, but require some more investigation. And they're not misleading, but they are just some different ideas, and I get to feel them out as far as what that idea actually conveys about where I am and about how I feel. For instance, I've been dating. And I mean, there's a guy in my life right now. We have been talking back and forth. We've been on a few dates, and we were discussing just some important things last night over Marco Polo. And this is a person that I feel very comfortable with, and he feels very comfortable with me. And we were talking about how the comfort leads to a lack of butterflies in the stomach. So this is a new relationship, and generally with new relationships with me, there's butterflies, and yet with this gentleman, there have not been. We were talking back and forth about what that is, how it's just something that is present, and whether it's good or bad, neither of us really knows, just because this relationship is pretty new, but we're excited to carry on with it and to see what it can grow into. And I said, yeah, there weren't any butterflies, but there was certainly something else. He tended to agree with that, although neither of us could really explain what that meant. And so likely over this week, I'm going to sit down and just kind of mull over that idea of no butterflies, but definitely something else. And I am potentially going to be writing an essay on what that could mean to me, because I've done that with many different things over the years. I did that during a time when a certain friend of mine was getting divorced. I've done that over what a larger picture of the idea of consent might mean, the right to marry, and many different things. And granted, I don't have all of these essays still, but I remember doing it, and to sit down and to compose something until the idea is complete and it fully represents what I feel and fully represents my fully formed idea is a good way for me to touch base and to just better understand my beliefs, to better understand the things that are important to me, and to just get a better picture about what all of that really means. It's really valuable for me to be able to express in words the things that I feel and the things that I think. And so to take time to sit down and mull over what those feelings are and express them even in a private way in a journal or whatever that might be, helps me to plant my feet on solid ground and to carry on with confidence, knowing what I believe. And so that is what I leave with you today. Well, that is what I wanted to share with you today. That writing helps me better understand what I believe. And now you may think to yourself, but you're writing fiction. I mean, yay for writing essays. That is a very straightforward way to express those things. But those things come through in fiction too. When you are putting your characters in situations where they get to kind of develop their own moral compass, or they get to figure out something, if they are in some form of dilemma or conundrum or whatever, if there is contention between two characters or another situation and they get to figure it out, all of that is just a narrative for you to express things that you believe, or for you to express things that other people believe, so that you can provide many different sides to an argument or to a theory. And it just helps you see the very big picture of what all of that might be. I don't know what your goal setting things, your New Year's resolutions look like this year or any year. But for me, I'm going to be sitting down and formulating those things. I usually don't write goals. I usually write intentions, just simple statements of truth that remind me of what I'm working for or working toward. Things that have the ability to grow and evolve so that they can mesh into my ever-changing life. And so I'm going to be formulating those things this week as well. And I invite you to set your own goals, however you choose to do that. If you choose to do intentions like I do, if you choose to do measurable goals like most people do, then do that as well. But I truly hope that 2023 brings all of the things that you deserve to you. That can be good, that can be bad, but it is honest, my friends. I hope that whatever you are working toward comes to you. And with that, I say goodbye until next year when we start season 3 of Writing in the Tiny House. Thank you so much for being with me, and we will tune in, and please tune in again next year, which is just next week, for the first episode of season 3 of Writing in the Tiny House. Have a good day, guys. Bye. And that is it for today. Go ahead and follow me on social media. On Instagram, I am at author Devin Davis. On Twitter, I am at author Devin D. And I also have an account on TikTok. Go ahead and find my information in the show notes of this episode. And remember that my short story Brigitte, which was published last fall, is available on Amazon as an ebook and on Audible as an audiobook. Go ahead and check those things out today. And be sure to join me on next week's episode of Writing in the Tiny House. Run by copy editor Chrissy Barton, Little Syllables Editing is a reliable resource for anyone looking to improve their manuscript. Chrissy does line edits, copy edits, and the final proofread for experienced writers and newbies alike. Go to littlesyllables.com and reach out to Chrissy today. A link is in the show notes.